What does your Bible tell you about the end time? Watch this video. You understand that it's not just a fight, but it's a biblical fight.
Residences of senior commanders within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. But what shocked the world was not the number of bombs dropped, but the near-perfect precision. Israel did not bomb indiscriminately. They eliminated each key link in Iran's command coordination and counterattack system, crippling its ability to organize a response from the very first minute. Some of the prominent figures taken out of the fight included Chief of Staff Mohammad Bagheri, IRGC Commander Hossein Salami, and even the Space Force commander who was overseeing nuclear missile development. The source of that effectiveness didn't come solely from fighter jets. Mossad and Israel's Special Forces Unit Sayeret Matkal had quietly planted suicide UAV devices, observation posts, and even insider agents deep within Iran years ago. On the night of June 13th, all those assets acted simultaneously, coordinating so precisely that they nearly disabled Iran's entire air defense system within the first few minutes. While the world was still reeling from the speed and scale of the campaign, a major question arose. Why now? According to analysts, the answer lies at the point of no return, when Israeli intelligence determined that Iran had the capability to produce at least 15 nuclear warheads and had completed a long-range missile system capable of striking every major city in Israel. Israel chooses to take action, not because they want war, but because they believe that if they don't act immediately, tomorrow will be too late. Less than 24 hours after being caught off guard by the attack, Iran launched its first retaliatory strike. On Friday night, a series of explosions echoed throughout central Israel. Air raid sirens blared from Tel Aviv to Haifa, forcing millions of Israelis to rush into bomb shelters. More than 100 ballistic missiles and 100 suicide drones were launched from Iran's remaining bases and several locations controlled by proxy forces in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. However, the actual effectiveness of this counterattack is much lower than Tehran had anticipated. According to a statement from the Israeli Ministry of Defense, the majority of missiles and UAVs were successfully intercepted by the multi-layered defense systems, including the Iron Dome, David's Sling Arrow 2, and Arrow 3. In fact, some missiles were even shot down at long range by radar and fighter jets deployed by the US in Jordan and the Mediterranean. The result, only about 7 missiles penetrated the defense, causing material damage in several residential areas in Tel Aviv and injuring at least 35 people, including 2 in critical condition. On the military front, Iran has failed to achieve any deterrent effect. However, in the eyes of observers, it is the slow response that is even more concerning. Tehran's counterstrike came nearly 17 hours after Israel's airstrike, a delay long enough to reveal the chaos within the command and control system following the elimination of numerous high-ranking generals. The problem lies in Iran's overly centralized command structure, which depends almost entirely on the highest levels of the military and the Revolutionary Guard. When those key figures are removed from the equation, the decision-making chain becomes paralyzed. There is no plan B, no system for immediate tactical substitution, only fragmented and symbolic reactions as if to assert, "We are still here." Song Iran should not be underestimated too soon. Statements from Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and the spokesperson for the IRGC both declared, "This is only the beginning. The real revenge is yet to come." According to some Reuters sources quoting Iranian military officials, if Tehran continues to be attacked, Israel's energy, financial, and nuclear infrastructure will be the next targets. Meanwhile, Israel continues to maintain the initiative. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant emphasized, "Iran's audacity to attack Israeli civilians crosses a red line. They will pay a very heavy price." In fact, the Roaring Lion campaign is far from over, with subsequent airstrikes targeting the Tabriz military airport missile depots and strategic railway lines in western Iran. From an analytical perspective, Iran's weak and sluggish counterattack indicates that the losses from Israel's initial strike were far more extensive than anyone anticipated. This was not just a military blow. It was a strike aimed directly at the command backbone, hitting a fundamental vulnerability in Tehran's centralized leadership structure. But the game is far from over. The real question now is whether Iran can recover enough to launch a large-scale counterattack, or if it is entering a cycle of decline before it can regain the upper hand. If there were no planes in the sky, no deafening sound of bombs falling, would you even know that a war had started and ended right in the heart of your capital? For Iran, the answer is no. Israel's most effective strike didn't come from the air. It came from within, where Mossad had quietly established roots more than a decade ago. The Israel-Iran conflict is not just a battle of advanced weaponry, but also an absolute intelligence war. In less than a single night, Israel delivered a strategic shock to Iran, eliminating the entire senior command layer of Iran's air and space forces through a meeting organized by Tehran itself, but orchestrated according to a scenario staged by Tel Aviv. According to disclosures from Israeli intelligence sources in the months leading up to the Roaring Lion operation, Mossad carried out a high-level strategic deception campaign. This involved using fabricated data fake messages through internal communication channels and even planted personnel to mislead Iranian commanders into concentrating their forces at a secret command bunker near Tehran. This underground facility, once considered impregnable, lies hundreds of meters below the surface and is protected by multiple layers of air defense. But what Iran couldn't defend against was an intelligence-guided bomb. Mossad didn't just know where they would meet. They orchestrated the situation to force them to gather there at the exact time with all the key figures present, including Amir Ali Hajizadeh, commander of the Revolutionary Guard Air Force, along with the entire UAV Command Space Defense and Air Defense leadership. A precision-guided missile launched from an F-35 fighter jet struck straight into the ground, destroying them all in a single strike. This is not simply espionage. This is the art of strategic navigation. A Mossad expert described this operation as social engineering on a national scale. It's not about isolated individual targets, but about exposing an entire chain of links to eliminate them like dominoes. By creating a fake information channel about Israel's planned attacks on Syria and Lebanon, Mossad led the IRGC to believe that an emergency meeting in Tehran was necessary to coordinate defensive responses. The success didn't come from technology, but from a deep understanding of the opponent's mindset and distorting that very command system from within. Not stopping at strategic deception, Israel also uses drones that are launched directly within Iran's territory. No need to fly in from outside. These small suicide drones, pre-programmed in advance, only require an activation command from a covert control center to strike radar stations, missile depots, and command centers. The Sayeret Matkal, Special Forces and Unit 8200 in coordination with Mossad, not only gathered intelligence on targets, but also worked together to disrupt the air defense system by attacking from the inside out. This created just enough of a gap for the Israeli Air Force to penetrate deep into Iranian airspace without facing any significant interception. When darkness overshadows nuclear light, the core objective of the campaign is to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. However, the truth is that not every nuclear facility is targeted, such as Fordo, which is located deep inside a mountain. Israel does not have the capability to penetrate it unless supported by the GBU-57 bunker buster bomb owned by the United States. So where does victory come from? It comes from Israel breaking the will and command capabilities of Iran's nuclear program without needing to destroy all the equipment. When nuclear scientists such as Firidun Abbasi and Mohammad Tanchi are eliminated and the entire strategic advisory team is wiped out, Iran loses the ability to organize any nuclear progress in the short term. Israel did not simply launch a military campaign. They initiated a battle for perception. The preemptive strike not only shook Iran, but also sent a message to the entire region. No place is off limits. Those who thought they were safe just by hiding underground were mistaken. This Mossad operation is not only the pinnacle of deception strategy, but also a chilling warning. If you are the target, you won't realize it until it's already too late. While the smoke and flames had not yet cleared, the world entered an unprecedented diplomatic standoff. The United States affirmed it would not engage directly in combat, but deployed radar systems warships and refueling support for Israel, signaling a tacit yet unmistakable show of support. President Trump declared Iran was warned 60 days ago. They didn't listen, and now it's all over. This statement raises the question, did the US know about it and give the green light? If so, this operation is the result of a silent alliance. Meanwhile, Europe is divided. France, Germany, and the UK have expressed support for Israel's right to self-defense, but have called for restraint. Russia and China immediately condemned Tel Aviv's actions as a violation of sovereignty. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia, traditionally a rival of Iran, has taken a cautious stance, not wanting to be drawn into a regional conflict. In Tehran, people are worried about the possibility of the conflict spreading internally as opposition groups begin to exploit the situation to incite protests. For the first time in many years, the image of the invincible theocratic regime has been shattered right in the capital city. Israel won the first round. But the bigger question is, will Iran stop? 3 clear scenarios have emerged. Iran launches a full-scale retaliation, drawing the US into the conflict and sparking a major Middle East war. Iran is stepping back tactically, using diplomacy to regain its standing after reorganizing its leadership structure. Internal divisions within Iran have led to a shift in power from within. For Israel, a military victory is not enough. If the conflict drags on, the international community may turn its back. If Iran attacks Israel's energy facilities, the economy will suffer significant damage. But no matter what happens, one thing is clear: the Middle East chessboard is no longer the same. A new era has begun where war no longer takes place on the battlefield but starts in the shadows. The dawn light cast a warm golden glow over the surface of the Red Sea, but that peacefulness was merely a veneer, masking an undercurrent storm waiting to erupt. In April 2025, a fragile ceasefire agreement was just announced between the United States and the Houthi forces in Yemen. The whole world held its breath in hope. But in these waters, where warships, drones, submarines, and high-tech weapons operate just a few nautical miles apart, any mistake could ignite the flames of war. Beneath the seemingly calm waters, 230 feet below the sea surface, a ghost moves silently. This is the USS New Mexico, a Virginia-class attack submarine, one of the most formidable strategic assets of the US Navy. It makes no sound and leaves no trace. It moves like a ghost, monitoring every development without anyone knowing it's there. At the same time, just a few dozen nautical miles away, a coastal radar station operated by the Houthi forces began detecting something unusual. On the sonar screen, a faint signal appeared, a large object moving slowly with no escort vessels. There were no features indicating it was a warship. A quick analysis concluded it was a supply ship. A soft target, as they called it. Immediately, an unmanned underwater vehicle, UUV, was launched. Compact, silent, but packed with explosives. The target to destroy the unknown ship before it could resupply American or Allied forces in the area. But the Houthis didn't realize they had just provoked something they absolutely should not have. The UUV sped through the darkness, gliding through the deep water layer, gradually approaching its target. Inside the USS New Mexico, the sailors operated the sonar system with surgical precision. They had detected an approaching object, but instead of reacting hastily, they remained silent. Because they knew just one sound could jeopardize the entire surveillance mission. And then, clink. A small tapping sound echoed across the ocean depths. The UUV had made contact with the hull. No explosion, no breach. But in the world of submarines, just making contact is enough to shatter all the unwritten rules. In just a few seconds, the USS New Mexico transmitted a top-level encrypted data package. All tactical communication channels were immediately activated. No words were spoken, no red alert sounded. The entire fleet understood this was no longer reconnaissance. This was an act of war. And then in the cold silence of the ocean, a beast had awakened. When the Houthi drone skimmed the hull of the USS New Mexico, there was no explosion, no sparks. But in the covert world of undersea warfare, that did nothing to lessen the seriousness of the incident. For a strategic attack, submarine like the New Mexico just being detected is already a failure. Being touched? That's a shock. In the control cabin, no one needed to shout. No one panicked. Every crew member understood the gravity of the situation, not because the ship was damaged, in fact the hull remained intact, but because this was an act that crossed a red line. The USS New Mexico is a mobile territory of the United States. Any unauthorized approach, whether accidental or intentional, is considered a direct threat to national security. Immediately, all systems inside the submarine switched to emergency response mode. The internal warning signal was activated, and sensor data including sound temperature and magnetic field readings were packaged and transmitted through a highly secure channel to the USS Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group. Less than 3 seconds later, intelligence officers hundreds of miles above the sea surface began analyzing the UUV's trajectory control signals, combat capabilities, and launch origin. They didn't wait to verify whether it was intentional or not. In these waters, every risk must be treated as the worst-case scenario. What the Houthis or anyone else failed to realize is that the ship they just collided with was far from ordinary. The USS New Mexico is not just a submarine. It is an advanced stealth platform, an indispensable part of the United States' global strategic deterrent system. Powered by nuclear energy, the submarine can operate underwater for several months without surfacing. It features an extremely quiet pump jet propulsion system that produces almost no noise, rendering any tracking efforts futile. The hull's surface is coated with sonar-absorbing rubber, making it effectively invisible to all detection devices. Not only is it hard to detect, but New Mexico is